I mean, I think we're already seeing increased involvement from the U.S. military. And we recently on the PDB talked about involvement from the CIA, use of MK9 Reaper drones for surveillance. What, from your perspective, is the likelihood that the U.S., I'm not talking about a liaison relationship with Mexico, I'm talking about unilateral action. Based on your experience, do you believe the U.S. under the Trump administration could start taking unilateral action against the cartel?
So that is a big point of discussion and debate about whether that could happen or will happen. The way the administration talks about it is that they seem to be like aching for a fight, really spoiling for a direct fight. But I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to try to avoid it. That is a very tricky challenge to bilateral relations between the two countries. There's a lot of at stake on our side with doing that too, but I do think that there is an elevated risk, though, that if the cartels feel cornered enough, that they would attack people, personnel, targets on our side of the border in frustration or anger or lashing out or whatever, because they are very cornered right now. We are setting the table to corner them and hurt them every possible way we can, short of direct kinetic activity. Now, we are moving into place. You'll see, like in the Washington Post and New York Times right now, stories about like, oh, well, with so few people crossing the border illegally, why do we have all these troops down there? They're just not thinking about this the right way. The reason why we have, I think, troops down there, including moving the 10th Mountain Division into Fort Huachuca, Arizona, famed light infantry force, not far from the Mexican border, is because they present a credible retaliatory threat should the cartels start to get interested in that sort of thing in the coming months. We also have moved in what's called littoral combat ships from the U.S. Navy into the Gulf of America now. I got to get used to that. I mean, it's the Interior Department made an official name change. So whatever, who am I to disagree? And also, we're putting spy planes, a lot of spy flights. We're clearly setting the table for something. We're repositioning CIA assets in Mexico to dramatically ramp up counter narcotics, counter cartel operations, meaning infiltration, possibly kinetic action down there, but certainly a whole lot of intelligence providing to the Mexicans. We also have the Green Berets down there now, just moved in to start training Mexican naval infantry forces in what they call non-conventional combat. So why wouldn't the Mexican cartels lash out at us? We're the ones causing all this trouble. So now we have the means to strike back at them if necessary. And I don't think that they would hesitate. If we lost a couple of Border Patrol agents, I mean, you think Trump's going to not go in?
I take your point. I think you're right on that. Talk to me about the logistics. I mean, when we talk about naming a cartel as a foreign terrorist organization, what does that allow for the U.S. government to do?
Well, it really emphasizes the full range of powers and authority, disciplinary power that we would put against like ISIS and Al Qaeda. Anybody that does business with them, we can charge them with material support for terrorism. A bank executive, Crips and Bloods on the streets of Chicago or Oakland or something, potentially. You can really mess up and foul up their operations, their drug moving operations, if you throw some terrorism charges at at people there and here. You can also freeze their assets, block their access to. I mean, you could seize their assets and block their access to banking systems and financial institutions all over the world. The cartels are everywhere. They're in 40, 50 different countries operating. And so this really allows the United States to go in and the Treasury Department and really muck things up for them and isolate them from the groups and other people and institutions that they use to do business around the world. So we'll see to what extent they were able to do those things, but they have the arrows in the quiver for that at least.
Okay, so it really expands the playing field in terms of what resources they can bring against the cartels at any given time. But I think it's fascinating because I think when people hear that, oh, it's a foreign terrorist organization designation, right? And there's always that comparison. Well, it could be like ISIS or Al Qaeda doing battle. The problem is we're talking about significantly different beasts in a way from an operational perspective. So the cartels already have significant resources and personnel on the ground inside the U.S. Right,
Yes.
as a result of years and years of developing their businesses or criminal organizations. And on the Mexican side, they operate much like a paramilitary operation as opposed to a criminal, organization. Right? I mean, they're extremely well resourced and staffed. So I think it's interesting because I'm hearing out there, I'm hearing a lot of people, not a lot, but I'm hearing people talking about how yes, we should just send in the SEALs, take out the cartel. I don't think it's as easy as people are imagining.
No, it's not. And we have fairly recent case study of this with the presidency of Felipe Calderon of Mexico, who went to war, called it, said we declare war on the cartels militarily, and for 6 years they did full combat operations all over Mexico, and barely put a dent in the drug trafficking. And the U.S. They had us helping them with intelligence, just kind of like now, like they're preparing to do now. So I kind of see a little bit of a replay. They're going to have to do something different. I think the designation is different. The will of the president, of the U.S. president, to really isolate them is something that's different as well. And we could actually suppress fentanyl. And so, I mean, this is really a lot of this is about fentanyl. And
Yeah.
honestly, if I were the cartels, I would be like, you know what? If their big issue is fentanyl, we'll just stop doing fentanyl. And, we'll keep on with heroin and all the other good stuff, but just not fentanyl and let them claim a win. But who knows how this is going to turn out? It is a wicked homeland security problem. Those cartels are brilliant at morphing and surviving like cockroaches and rats in a nuclear winter. We saw that with Calderon from 2006 to 2012. And by the way, I covered that war for 4 years on the ground in Mexico. So I know what I'm talking about with that.
Yeah. No, I was down there for part of that, in and out during those years of his administration, and it was horrific. The violence was on a completely another level, and eventually the public
200,000.
just said that we've had enough, right? I think part of the change in approach to the cartels, going back to managing, which most administrations in Mexico over the years have done. They just we'll just manage the problem, try to get the violence down to almost an acceptable level, and just allow them to do their business because they knew taking them on head on well, you got what you got during the Calderon administration. And so I
Right.
think,
And
you know, if you can get, if you could get Scheinbaum's cooperation, I would argue the most effective way to go about this is in a liaison relationship, right? Is to use the Mexican Marines, which are probably the most trusted institution in Mexico at this stage of the game, given how endemic some of the corruption is. But I worry that it's more of a show, as we talked about earlier, on the part of the Mexican government to basically to try to keep Trump from pushing the tariffs. And so I agree with you. They'll have to get a couple of scalps here to show that we're making some progress. But I think your phrasing is absolutely right. Their heart's not in it because they grew up and watched what happened during the Calderon administration.
Everybody remembers that. And I'll also just add that I don't think the American electorate is going to tolerate American soldiers coming home in body bags from Mexico.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.